Welcome to Smart Branding, a podcast dedicated to branding, naming, and domain names. I'm Tatiana Bonneau, and with my guests, we try to help you create and grow strong, memorable, and meaningful brands online. I believe time is one of our most precious assets, and so I want to thank you in advance if you decide to spend the next 30 minutes with us. I promise to do my best to make those worth it. Let's go! So my guest today is Alex Feltwell. He's the CEO and co-founder of Atomise, where him and his team help entrepreneurs with digital transformation. Thank you for making the time. It's a pleasure having you here, Alex.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with my classic first question, a bit of a background. So where did you come from? What brought you to do what you do today?
So I've spent most of my career working in financial services. For probably the last almost 20 years, I've focused on wealth management and the fintech solutions in that space. And the founding team that we've got within Atomise, we'd all worked together at one of the large wealth management tech providers. So that was where we all came together, like minds, and we wanted to solve problems in the same sort of way. And that was what sort of sowed the seed back in 2022 of how we would launch the business, and it's grown from there.
That's actually quite interesting because, at least in my experience, and I've had a few guests on the podcast that were in particular not impressed with the digitalization and digital transformation of the financial industry. So was there any connection there, or what's your experience with that?
Yeah, and the big driver was, and it sort of plays out through a lot of the values that we've now got as we've gone through the Atomise rebrand, is there's a lack of transparency. Tech providers go in there, and so long as they're getting paid, they don't really care about customer outcomes in the same way, and everything's slow, everything's costly, everything is just not delivering value. And ultimately, if you look at the financial services space, there are real people at the end of that value chain. There are, parents, there are pensioners, whatever, that are taking money out of that system, and they rely on the things to work and to work efficiently and to work accurately. And particularly across myself and Mike, there was this real sort of drive to say, look, this isn't good enough. We've got to raise those standards, because ultimately these are real people that are being impacted by these substandard deliveries. And it plays out right through that whole value chain, because the tech transformations take so long. It costs the businesses that are running those an absolute fortune. Well, ultimately that gets passed back on to the customers because they've had to fund that. So it was really driven by this sort of fairness position of, if we can do this better, then actually everybody benefits. Values delivered earlier, end customers get a good deal out of this, and hopefully we can grow business out of it as well.
And I think that's something people forget across a lot of areas of business, unfortunately. The fact that ultimately, like, I feel like a lot of people are stuck on looking at the results, like you say, how does, like, I don't know, if you transfer that to social media, like how many likes and shares and whatever statistics, and they're not thinking, what does actually the end user benefit out of that? Like, where are they even in the whole equation?
Yeah. And businesses, we have a social media business as well, that we're developing, and ultimately, these are people that are in the system. You've got to connect with the fact that there are people that are having their lives impacted by everything that goes on, and don't just see it as this sort of bubble that you operate in, where it's tech and it's somebody that I worked with had this great phrase that he has, like, his work money and he has his real money. And he'll go work on these projects, and it'll be, oh, it's 10 million pounds, and everybody will think, oh, nothing of it, it's 10 million pounds, and you just accept it. But that's a lot of money, and especially when you delve into where that's coming from and how that's coming through charges and so on. So this real sort of grounded position of let's deliver and make sure that people get a fair deal out of what we're trying to deliver.
So tell me a bit more about what is it exactly that you do?
So the core of what we do are two aspects of the business. One is around the actual software delivery, and we will build pretty much any and every type of software. So we'll build for web, we'll build for desktop, we'll build SaaS, we'll build for mobile. Because from our perspective, tech is tech. You bring a problem-solving mindset to that and the way that you tackle it. And ultimately, if you can describe what's going into it, then you can build the tech. And it doesn't matter what that looks like. There are some deviations. We don't touch games or anything like that. We work very much in that sort of B2B business space of building solutions. But first and foremost, as a business, we come at it from a very consultative position. So we like to focus on the problem first and understanding the business that they've got and how they're looking to solve problems within that business through technology. And that's where we really start with every engagement that we have to try and understand how this fits. Because quite often tech isn't the right place to go. I've written a blog post today about the role of AI, and quite worryingly, we're getting more and more inquiries about people that just want to build AI for AI's sake because it's this trend that they're on. And actually, they don't need it in every situation. It's around those specific niches that they can then deliver real value. So by being able to take that step back and say, look, we consult first and we then deliver second is the approach that we take. And as an overall business, and this was one of the real drivers around the rebrand, we like to deliver value early. So we work very much in discrete packets of work that deliver value, that can get them in the hands of the customers. And we do that for a number of reasons. One is because we think it's the right thing to do, that you can get that tech in people's hands and they can start to use it and they can start to see whether it's the right fit for them or if they want to change it. Secondly is around trust. So we're not looking to sign up businesses to enormous long contracts. We generally go in with something that's really accessible to say, look at us and judge us on our results, because we believe that we will deliver value. And then, you can start to build that trust in the space. And then I think the final one in that space is around the risk. If you go and embark on a large piece of tech delivery, you don't know where that ultimately should really end up, because as you start to put it in people's hands and you get feedback, you need to be able to pivot. Whereas, if you've gone into these large fixed price contracts and said, right, we're delivering X, you're on that pathway to deliver this thing. And it just puts you into this sort of confrontational position, because as a provider, you've said, well, I've based everything around delivering X. And then as the picture emerges to ultimately the client at the end of it, it might need to have a different picture. So having this real atomic approach and delivering value in incremental pieces is absolutely crucial to the way that we work as a business.
So we mentioned a few times now the rebrand, and as you were just explaining how you work, you can see how the name really actually fits. Tell me a bit more about the business was called Kune. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah,
Consulting.
that's right.
So what was that process like? I do work with a lot of entrepreneurs who either are considering a rebrand or rebranding, but there's a lot more that, in my opinion, and I would say in the opinion of their customers and even team members, oftentimes they do need to consider it, but they're blind to it. So I'm very interested to see what was the process like. How did you realize you do need to rebrand, and then the whole process through, choosing the right name and going through with it?
So some of it was really a bit of a perfect storm. It was something that we were mulling at as to, how we would continue to grow as a business. And we'd had sort of little bits of feedback around the brand name. People struggled to pronounce it. They were constantly asking us, how do you pronounce it? What does it mean? We had frustration just around the domain name. So the .consulting extension, not all websites will accept the .consulting domain names. And that, from a tech provider, was clashing with us to say, this isn't right. And then we actually got introduced to a branding agency through a mutual connection within my network. And they were looking to the agency, quite happy to share, is an agency in the UK called Firestarter. And they were looking for essentially guinea pigs to test out a new branding process that they were test driving, called Brand Site 360, which was about assessing your business and how you might evolve that into a brand. And
Mm.
we said, we'd love to be involved in this. We're quite opinionated guys, and we can give you feedback, and it plays into our space of sort of efficiency and consulting and everything. So we went on this journey, and a lot of it was sort of crystallizing everything that we knew. Our background is technology and consulting and so on, and we'd sort of thrown the brand together. We knew that we wanted to be different when we first started out with Kune. Right from the logo and everything, we didn't want to feel the same as all the sort of tech providers that were out there. So we tried to do that, and excusing the pun, we've done it in this quite ham-fisted way, where we sort of done that, and it created an identity in the market. People recognized us, but as we started to go through this brand site process, we found was that people didn't really get it. They recognized that we were trying to be different, and they knew who we were, but ultimately it didn't convey those messages that we were looking for from the initial touch points with us as a business that we actually knew we needed from a brand if we were going to continue to grow from there. And that was the real spark around that. And then as a business, the thing that we actually struggled with most was coming up with the revised company name, because we knew what we wanted to achieve. And, we knew that we wanted to, from the initial point that you heard our company name, it started to spark thoughts about the business and a perception of what the business did. But we didn't really know what we were going to call it. And, we must have had, I don't know, probably approaching 50 different company names that had found their way onto a fig jam board around this. And Mike then I think it was one Friday afternoon, he just ended up looking at a physics textbook that he had in his office. And he threw the name out there, and we were both like, yes, that's it. That's because one of the key defining features of us as a business is this sort of breaking it down. As I've already said, we like to take it apart and then put it back together and come up with these real sort of atomic solutions. So this then was like, yes, light bulb moment. This really fits for us. And then, once we had a company name and we had the sort of the drivers of what we wanted to achieve as a business, Firestarter then helped us really unpack that and start to put together this offering that was, really tying it all together as a business. And, we're really pleased with the outcome.
And you went with the exact brandmatch.com domain this time, so no fancy extensions.
Yeah, absolutely. And that again was one of the probably the biggest decisions that we had to go for, because it wasn't immediately available. It wasn't as a just, you go register and it's a £1 registration through GoDaddy. We had to pay a little bit more for that as a brand name. But we felt that if we're going down this route, this was really a key part of it, to say, we are a proper company that has, that exact brand match domain name, and that's where we are in the market. So we invested in that as part of the rebrand as well.
I think that's really, the message it sends. It's like we're here to stay. We're, on that level, we are the one. And I find I hear a lot of times entrepreneurs saying, well, we are a B2B brand and branding doesn't matter to us that much. We're not dealing with, end users, and you are a B2B brand. So how do you feel? And you also work and consult a lot of brands in that space too. What are your thoughts on that? On what would you say to somebody feeling that way?
I think we thought like that. That was, initially we thought, well, we can differentiate, we can get out there, and, provided we look different, then we're differentiated in the market. But what we found as we've gone on this branding journey is that actually, if you do invest in your brand and start to put that together, then it kind of all clicks into place if you get it right. From you can tell that story that, who are you as a business? What do you do? Why do you do it? And then you can really start to focus in the market on attracting those like minds that are looking for somebody that's like you. And that was really crucial for us. You know, as we went through, one of the things that we recognized was that the companies that we like to work with and the companies that we give the sort of best version of ourselves with are the ones that are really ambitious. You know, and that isn't that they're just going to spend a load of money. It's that mindset that they have, that they will, you know, they'll push the envelope with every solution that they're trying to do. They'll be receptive to new ideas. They will work in different ways. They'll embrace agility. And what we've then done is really dial our brand up to talk to those types of businesses. You know, we don't want to, as a business, we don't want to go in there and basically just sit on a seat for them forever. You know, we don't want to be those long-term tech providers. We want to be seen as somebody that comes in, solves your problems, and then leaves you with a sustainable, scalable solution for the future. And, you know, that's then part of our messaging, that we're saying that's the type of brand that we are. And if that's the type of solution that you want, then you should come and talk to us. And if not, then that's fine. You know, there are other providers out there that can work with you in the way that you want. But if you identify with those values, then absolutely, we will be a fantastic fit for you.
And I think, yeah, and you mentioned that at the beginning as well, that the old brand, even down to the domain name, was different. Like you definitely look at it and go, oh, okay, that's different. But just being different apparently is not enough. Like it's not. It also has to communicate what you are. It's not just I'm different. It's like what's there for me, basically, to know anybody looking.
I think so. I think so. You know, we had a different name, but people didn't get it. You know, we put Kune together for a number of reasons, but the main reason behind that was that it means together in Esperanto, and this, you know, that has translated into the brand. But we're almost trying to be too clever with that. You know, unless you're sort of fluent in Esperanto, you're not going down and picking that out as a reason. So we took a step back and really started to look at, you know, what do we do? Why do we do it? Who do we work best with? And then crafted that messaging around that to basically start the conversation. Before they've even spoken to us, they understand what we're like as a business, how we're going to work. And if that's something that then attracts them, then it's worth a conversation. And, you know, it's then just a commercial discussion.
And how has it been taken by your team, the rebrand? I know a lot of entrepreneurs are sort of nervous about how obviously the customers, business partners, team members gonna take that rebrand. You know, there's always some risk involved. There's always investment involved. So how do you justify that? What was that like?
I think the team viewed it very positively. They saw it as an investment in, you know, we've just finished year 2, and they saw that we were trying to grow up as a business. They could see the rationale behind it. They could see how we were positioning ourselves. I won't say differently, because this was always how we intended to position ourselves in the market, but in a more sort of transparent and clear manner within the market, we were positioning that way. And really excited by what that then meant, because, you know, we think now as a brand, we're far more impressive, you know, from the website to the marketing material to the messaging that we've got. All of that now is very much on brand, and it clearly articulates what we are and who we are as a business.
So let's talk a bit about your clients. You have the background before and now second year of the business, and you're advising entrepreneurs on digital transformations. What would you say are some of the most common mistakes people make in that space?
I've actually just written a blog about that this week. I think there's a number of mistakes, and it's on. I've actually written 2 blogs around it. It's both sides of the coin. So if I start with clients, you know, we see a lot of clients that are coming to the table and they almost just expect tech providers to solve their problems. They don't want to be part of the solution. They want to come in and almost like you're some sort of magician, and you can wave a magic wand and suddenly their business is fixed or the problem that they've got is fixed. And we see that quite a lot where, clients don't really understand how to work with somebody that wants to work really collaboratively. We want to understand your business. We want to make sure that we're giving you the right solution. So we see that. I think one of the other aspects is around the sort of the funding position. We see a lot of unrealistic expectations from clients where they don't understand that technology is going to actually cost anything. They sort of see, oh, that's relatively small. But if you're working with the types of clients that we want to work with, where they're ambitious, then actually you have to think about not just the sticking plaster solution that's here and now. It's how do you build that in such a way that it will extend and scale into the future, so that if they then do get, 1 million customers onto their platform, it doesn't fall over and they don't have to go through rework and things like that. And this is why we talk about this ambition being really important as well, because we don't want to build sticking plasters as a solution. It's very easy to go in there and just leave somebody with a bill and some tech that will solve for today. But that's not the right answer. That's basically just saying, come back to us in a few months and we'll give you the solution that you should have had then. And you're not opening their eyes to the type of the solution that they really need. So this type of approach they're probably the biggest mistakes that we see on the client side. Also, lack of thought into what type of solutions and what type of problem that they really want. It's for us, it's focus on that problem. And if they can't articulate the problem that they're having, then that's really difficult to say what the right solution is. So, we urge clients to sort of take that step back, focus on requirements, and then as part of building out that trust with us as a partner, we can make sure that we give you the right tech solution out of the back of that. And quite often they're surprised when it's a much smaller solution than what they were originally envisaging. I had one inquiry earlier this week, and they were saying, oh, we want AI and we want to do this and we want to do that. And it's like, well, you don't even know if your initial test of this market is going to work. So why don't you do something that is at much lower price point? Think about the future that you might want to go to AI and build it in such a way that you can extend out, but ultimately, don't worry about it. Just test the here and now, and then look to validate that and pivot. And they were really quite surprised that we're turning around and saying, "Don't spend as much money with us," which is sort of counterintuitive, but that's the right answer, and that's how we behave. On the tech side of things, I think a lot of tech providers just want to provide tech. And, that sounds sort of a bit of an odd thing to say, we want to provide tech, but we want to provide the right tech. We don't just want people to go in and build for the sake of it, because that then pays our bills and, we can pay our staff and so on. We want to make sure that we're giving the right solution so that we can look ourselves in the face and say, yes, that was the right time to build that particular technology solution. And I think that's a real problem, because when you engage with clients, they're looking for you to be this trusted advisor. And if you're immediately pushing them down that tech route, they start to think that that's the right thing to do immediately. And they sort of get wrapped up in all this. And, you see fancy wireframes and, high fidelity versions, and people get excited by this. But ultimately, if there's no substance behind the solution that you're delivering, then what's the point in building it? Ultimately, it has to solve a real world problem and deliver value into your business. So I think there's a real issue around that. And then, if I go back to one of our values around transparency, I think tech providers aren't transparent. They will quite often know that this is a sticking plaster solution that they're delivering, or they'll know that ultimately there's a load of hidden costs down the track that you're going to encounter as you start to build this out. And for us, it's better to open your eyes at the outset, because you can then plan for that. You can understand, you can find a way together to build that. It doesn't mean that it doesn't get built. It means that you build it in a way that is affordable and sustainable for you as a client that's going through it. And I think there's this real focus on how can I just get as much money as a tech provider into my bank account in the here and now. And for us, the point that they're missing is if you can build that trust out and you can show that you deliver value, then as they realize that value and continue to progress, then actually you go on this journey together, and the money comes in that longer term as you work together as a partnership. And that's why, for us, ambitions are a really important thing, because we want these clients that will go on these journeys, that we can unlock them at a point in time, and they'll continue to hopefully work with us down the line.
I think as you were talking, I had like flashbacks of, I'm struggling to think now. I was going to say 10, but I think it's more than 10, probably 12, 15 years ago. I had a software company in the UK as well, actually. And it was, I don't know if that's changed because I'm not in that space now, but it was very hard to discuss with people. We were building websites, software, with people that are not technical themselves or not enough technical. So they would go like, I want that done. And you're trying to explain, why and how is it done. Oftentimes it's not even exactly like, it's not the best thing for them and for their business, for the solution that they think is the best. And a lot of times you end up like hitting your head against a brick wall, because one, they don't get it. So like if they don't get it, that, they can't agree with it. And two, when they're not at least a little bit technical, it's very hard. Like for them, it would, moving a picture from here to there, like I'm oversimplifying, but moving a picture from here to there on a website or changing a bit of a design, they could justify spending on that, but not a form that does whatever, where visibly it's not a big thing happening, but actually it's much harder technically and so more expensive. So you end up like, one of the reasons I ended up quitting that space was that you end up like, okay, what do I do? Like, do I give them what they want, which is not to their benefit, and I get paid, or do I like try and educate them, which is a lot of time investment, and they still would have to want to be educated? Or what do you do with that? And like I'm curious as to how, because you did say a lot of tech providers would just end up with those plaster solutions, but I think at least a part of that is due to just not being able to do anything else.
I'd agree absolutely, and that's why the consulting aspects of our business is as equally important as the tech delivery, because we see that consulting side is the bit that gets it on the rails at the start. It's that smooth transition that takes it from here's a business problem to here's a business problem that's going to be solved by tech, to ultimately something that has been solved and realized by tech. And in a lot of ways, without sort of I don't mean to sort of run the tech team down, but the tech team in a lot of ways, if you get it right, is the easy bit, because what they're going to build. They know they've got the skills, they've got the tool sets to deliver against it. But actually taking something that is this sort of this blob of jelly almost at the outset, where particularly when you've got really non-technical clients that are working in that space, and sort of giving it some substance to it, that you can actually nail it to a wall and say, right, okay, that's what we're then going to build. That's the bit that we feel that we particularly excel at, because we come from this sort of consulting first background, that we're used to doing that translation from complete non-structured through to something that is then incredibly structured at the end, that's delivered via CI/CD DevOps type pipelines and things like that kind of come as a hygiene factor for the tech side of things. That is the easy bit in many ways. Our real value add is being able to take that and turn it into something that is a solution. And again, it's part of that whole atomized position. We break it down. We do actually deliver it into something that is manageable. So that and that manageable starts right at the outset with the client. They can see very quickly what the tech is going to do and how it's going to be delivered, and what that looks like before they've even got to embark on that journey.
Absolutely. How has, well, we did mention it a few times already, how has AI impacted what you do?
Um, I think the level of inquiries has been the first thing. It's clearly a buzzword and trend in business, and everybody is wanting to do it. Um, for me, I think it's in a lot of ways been missold. People
Mm,
are drawing their own understanding of it, and then taking that and saying, well, it's going to solve all my business problems.
mm,
And that's not the case. It's only as good as the training data that's going into it. It's only as good as the shaping of that model, and then the output of that. How do you actually transform that into something that delivers value? Because otherwise, you're just
mm,
shifting data around in the system, and you know you've got to turn that into something that is tangible. And I think that, as I said, it's quite worrying, because I think there will be a number of people that will get burnt in this space,
mm,
where they just want to build something to say that we are an AI business. We do quite a lot of
mm,
work with startups, and pretty much every startup that we speak to at the moment wants some AI flavor in there.
mm,
And whilst I can see that, it needs to be a consideration, it's about when is the right time to introduce that into there, because
mm,
otherwise you might as well just be playing the lottery. It's
mm,
got to be introduced at the right time to make sure it's the right solution for your business.
mm. I think, yeah, you're right, just AI for AI's sake. And you mentioned earlier, like tech for tech's sake. It's like, no,
Yeah.
you have to have some idea, you have to have some problem that you're solving, you have to have some market, and then with all of the tools that there are to, solve that issue, AI may likely be one of them. But you have to start with that problem that you have, not just like you said, I want to be
Yeah.
an AI company, let's go.
Yeah, and it's the whole package around it. You can build tech and you can go and automate almost any problem that you've got out there. But there has to be that financial viability to the solution that you're
Mm,
putting together as well. That there has to be sufficient demand. So the sorts of things that we would look at for clients when we're talking through their tech solution is, you know, why are you wanting to do it? Is it risk driven? Is it volume driven? Is it
mm,
that actually you're needing to interact with some other tech component via an API or something that makes it very
mm,
difficult to go in there? Is it time sensitive? What is it that actually is taking your business that you're currently doing in a manual, in inverted commas, manner, that is then
mm,
justifying some tech spend to automate that? And that has to be part of the solution. And for us, that then factors very much into that pricing conversation, because if you can talk to customers about, you're doing 10,000 of these per year, and it's taking you this, and you're having to potentially employ 3 extra staff to do it, and if you
mm,
want to scale, it's going to be 10 extra staff. They can start to see not only that the tech can deliver what they need it to deliver, but how it is that sort of unlocking point that says, I'm not constrained as a business anymore. I actually do
mm,
have some real sort of scaling and financial reason for me to go ahead and build this tech as well. And that's, again, it goes back to that ambitious position, that if
mm,
you're doing one of these things every week, do you really need a system to build it?
mm,
It's probably, by the time you've gone and invested in that, how many of these things do you actually have to do to get the return on the investment? And
mm,
that commerciality is something that we try and bring back to customers, to make them think about it. We
mm.
don't just want to take their money and build it. We want them to be investing in their business, because actually there is a genuine ROI on the tech that they build.
Mm, absolutely. That makes sense. Yeah. Great. Well, last thing, I mean, you just rebranded. We're coming up to the next year soon. That kind of flew away, but I mean, I'm starting to see them like Christmas tree. I'm like, no, stop it. It's too
Yeah.
early. But it's coming. So what's next? What are you looking forward to?
Um, Really getting the brand out there. So, we've started to really dial that up. We're looking to grow the team, particularly in the business development space, and really say, look, here's our message. we're built to scale. We're incredibly ambitious ourselves as a business. We want to talk to you. We want to understand what problems you've got and work out whether we're the right guys to go ahead and solve those problems for you. So it's a really exciting time for us to actually have that going into 2025 and be saying, look, we're here, we're ready, we can solve your problems.
And just like as a closing, we did mention the main sort of characteristic of somebody who would be a good fit to work with you would be they're ambitious. Do you have any like industries? You mentioned not working with gaming. So any industries that you prefer, any geographical locations, like who is your ideal client?
We work globally already. We've got clients right across the globe. We work across a range of industries. If I had to be really pushed, we add a lot of value in the fintech space. We've got real deep expertise in there, both in that consulting side and in the engineering side. So being able to understand the problems that other areas of that industry have experienced and the types of considerations that you have within their tech, then we can add real value for that. But we'll work with any type of client, really. For us, it's about that ambition. It's about being able to solve their problems and being able to take that real world problem and translate it into tech that ultimately moves their business forward.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Alex. That's been a pleasure. We'll include all the
Likewise.
ways people can reach out to you in the write-up for the podcast. Thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome to Smart Branding, a podcast dedicated to branding, naming, and domain names. I'm Tatiana Bonneau, and with my guests, we try to help you create and grow strong, memorable, and meaningful brands online. I believe time is one of our most precious assets, and so I want to thank you in advance if you decide to spend the next 30 minutes with us. I promise to do my best to make those worth it. Let's go!